Omar, welcome to the Aculac podcast.
Hey, what's up? I'm pumped to be here, Isaiah.
So excited to have you, bro. It's going to be good. This is one thing that Beck and I both have been talking a lot about, and it's something that I've tried to be a lot better, and that is my social media. And I think that there's a lot of our listeners that are listening that aren't capitalizing on their social media, and that might be for different reasons. And it might be organizations as well. Maybe there's a company listening, or maybe there's a church listening, and we're not utilizing social media the way we should, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm really excited about it. But first thing I want to talk about, Omar, is just kind of becoming clear. So I know for me, for a long period of time, my social media has just been something that I've done, to stay connected with family. You know what I mean? It's classic
For sure.
Facebook. Just get on Facebook, make sure that I'm, last week posting pictures of the baby, that kind of thing. Um, but I think for me, I haven't really utilized it to the best of my ability because I'm in so many different things. I mean, I could, promote Kinds better. And while I do have a Kinds coffee company IG page, I'm not doing what I should, I know, or for our LHYA at church, it's like I could be doing more there. But I think the first thing we have to do is just kind of become clear on why, the why behind our content. And so for me, I'm in a place, honestly, like I'm just starting off. I am by no means active enough, or I'm by no means great at social media, but it's like, okay, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? And what am I trying to, promote, or what am I trying to do with this? So what is the importance of taking into account, this why behind our social media, Omar?
No, man, I think knowing your why is step number one, and that's probably what the reason why a lot of people don't do a lot. And I would even argue that you don't have to do a lot, and like the pressure of always, keeping up or what have you. I think that's more irrelevant rather than the idea of like just getting started is really important. But like I feel like a lot of people's hesitation or even confusion comes because that isn't defined. And I don't think the why should be so granular deep. Like obviously I as a Christ follower, my ultimate why is to help be a part of winning people to know the Lord. And that's pretty deep, but I also need this, like, I guess you can call it, for a lack of better terminology, like a surface level why, and that is knowing who I'm serving. Like I want to build a reputation of being helpful, that I was helping somebody, along their journey when it came to creating content or what have you. And if I can get caught up in my own personal like mind games and stuff, but really understanding like who I'm trying to serve and what I'm trying to help them do allows me to actually, it fills in that content bucket, and then I don't run out of ideas, and then I'm allowed to just continue to serve. And one thing I've learned is the reality is the people you're trying to reach typically don't care about your why. That's because it's internal. So it's almost finding out other people's burdens and the reason why they're trying to do something, which will help you actually then be able to serve them. And so I think it is important to have your why, but I also think it shouldn't be so so deep, because if it's a general why, then it's probably going to help you. It's going to hurt your content in being more general. And so that I do think it's very important, but it also goes both ways in regards to knowing the person you're trying to serve's why.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the important thing, is knowing, who you're trying to. And same for me, it's like the ultimate goal is just to make sure that I'm promoting Christ above everything. And honestly, I think for me, and maybe some of our listeners, you can almost get overwhelmed with the feeling of having to, you know, um, be about the one thing and only post about the one thing. And then, you're not being creative because you're so focused on that one thing.
For
Whereas,
sure.
just trying to be the best you can, and then most of the time it takes care of the rest. And also, just when you become clear in general, those things usually just happen naturally, opposed to if you're trying to promote something that maybe isn't natural for you. If I
For
was
sure.
going to promote, fitness, you know what I mean? I need to get back on fitness, but it's not going to be great because it would be very forced because I'm not active right now. And so I think it's going back to just being your truest self in posting, and then generally the rest will follow. But I think it's important though to know that, you know, it's important to have quality. You know what I mean? social media is the market and you're the brand. So,
Hmm.
there is importance in not only the quantity, but I think also the quality. Because I know for myself, to be honest, I don't follow a lot of pages that don't have quality content. There might be some ants in there that don't have quality content that's got the follow, but generally speaking, I'm not going to want to follow somebody who doesn't have quality. And so I think for myself and my brand with Kinds, or what I mean, even with LHYA or Hack Your Lack, even it's like I want to make sure that I'm still learning, but I want to make sure that I'm giving the best quality that I can give in this time of my life. And I think what I think about is people, this idea of people are window shopping in our lives. And what are we selling? Is what we are displaying something that they are going to respond to, or engage with, or is it something that they're just going to scroll by? I don't know if this is across the board, Omar, but I know for me, a post that I never engage with or never pay attention to is the pictures of like nature. You know what I mean? Like low quality nature photos with a saying that I've heard 700 times. You know what I mean?
No, for
Um,
sure.
but one that I would is somebody that I'm intrigued by, and it's a video, and they're explaining their product or they're explaining their day. I'm going to be a lot more responsive towards that post. So I think it's really important to it's a work in progress. Like I know right now I'm not going to be posting at the level that The Rock is. Do you know what I mean? Or you are, but it's like it's getting to the place where we're getting better in our quality day by
No,
day.
for
So
sure. I
yeah,
think, yeah, and I think sometimes quality could be argued because you can have quality content and it not be on a production value
yeah,
side
yeah,
of
yeah,
things
for
quality,
sure.
but like the content itself is quality. I think Gary Vee is a good example of somebody who's putting out quality content and maybe doesn't always have the crispiest. And I think that's because this challenge we have now and this year is volume. Like
Yeah,
if you're doing and I think it's all specific too when it comes to like specific platforms as far as like the quality you're putting out, but like Instagram like favors volume. So like your quality can go as deep as your captions, your quality can go like I don't like to make don't put out, content just because you don't feel like it's up to par as far as visually. Um However, with more things becoming competitive, it does help to break through. If you probably gain another 3 to 5 seconds by showing up clearer on your stories than you did, than somebody else did. But like at the end of the day, like if you're limiting your amount of uploads or posts because of quality, I would ask again the why. Like
yeah,
you're limiting the ability to help more people. And also,
yeah,
I mean, it also goes to show, and I am passionate, obviously, I'm passionate about things looking good and being resourceful. And when, I mean, it's called Hack Your Lack. One thing we like to kind of like teach on Think Media is it's not about your resources, it's about your resourcefulness. Like, you know, I think one stewardship question when you're using your phone to shoot YouTube videos is like the rear camera is better than the front camera, and you have the phone, but like you just look at yourself in selfie mode when the rear camera is actually better. It's kind of like that picture is usually the case with a lot of people because they don't realize that they actually have stuff to get going and like just to get started. But back to like why I'm passionate about how things do look. Um, I think of the scripture where it says that like men look at the outward, but God looks at the heart. I think a lot of church leaders typically say like, man, it's all about the heart. But no, the scripture says men look at the
yeah,
outward.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so we need to be excellent, like especially if there's if we're putting Jesus on it, I think our reputation matters. And that's why I value excellence in the church community. Like people look at the outward. People aren't coming to the church and figuring out like what's the pastor's heart here. They're like looking and they're saying, is it clean? Am I getting helped to this room? Am I like are things done at a high level where it's not distracting? And like that's what people are looking at. And then like obviously the heart comes through eventually, but I definitely think there is a level of caring when it comes to production quality, but not at the sacrifice of like being at a place of limiting yourself from uploading or posting simply because you're not up to par.
yeah,
Telling your story is much more valuable than having a crispy shot and you have nothing to say, so that's something I would, my 2 cents in that
No,
regard.
yeah, that's so true. Yeah, quality. Yeah, quality meaning. Yeah, for sure. Just quality in general with your post. It doesn't necessarily have to mean. Like I said, definitely a plus. You know what I mean? It definitely helps. But if you don't have maybe the money to get that equipment, or you know what I mean, the resources to get that equipment, yeah, people respond to people who have something to say and who are true to what they're saying. And I know, I think about how people, if you don't believe in what you're saying, then the people on your social media won't believe in what you're saying. You know what I mean? Or even if you don't believe in yourself, then it probably won't be projected, and they won't believe in you either. Do you know what I
For
mean?
sure.
And so
But
it's
and
super
I love
scalable.
it. I mean, like when we hopped on this call, you were talking about how you just got this mic, but you've been doing podcasting for like 3 years. Like
Yeah,
that's a good picture. Like you grew into that. I know a lot of people that fork over the thousands of dollars and they haven't even started yet, and it's actually you're actually like paralyzed by all the gear and stuff. But because you've grown into it, it actually is just a better transition, and it's smooth, and people see the growth and they hear the growth based off of you reinvesting back into what it is you're putting out. So I think that's a perfect picture of how it's supposed to be.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Another thing I want to talk about, Omar, is insecurity and social media. And I wouldn't say that I'm an insecure guy, but I feel like I would feel insecure in posting every day or every hour right now. And insecure is probably not even the right word, but you know what I mean? It's this idea of, posting, or maybe some people on here are like, hey, I want to post a TikTok, but I think that I would probably look stupid and people would think I'd be stupid and not funny. Or, hey, I want to post this selfie and get this word out. But I'm afraid people will think I look fat or something. And so I think a lot of people, I at least think, are, probably not posting as much as they would, just because they're insecure. And again, insecurity doesn't have to necessarily, be, I feel like I don't look great, but it could just be, I feel like what I'm going to put out there won't be, recepted well, or maybe what I put out there, I don't know. There could be plenty of different reasons why we're insecure in posting in social media. Do you think this is a problem? Maybe I'm way off of here, Omar.
No, I
But
mean,
do
I
you?
think, let me like to boil down what insecurity is. Like, I think the root of insecurity is the fear of man. Like,
Yeah,
it's it's thinking about caring about what other people think. And I think like ultimately that doesn't come from God. God doesn't give us a spirit of fear. So like this fear of man, I think like is a thing, something we all kind of struggle with at some level. And that's what it is. I mean, call it, insecurity. Like if you're afraid to post because you're worried about, like, that's where I think, well then you potentially might be robbing. I would argue that you might be robbing somebody from a breakthrough because you're too worried about how you look on camera, or you're and the reality is somebody isn't insecure in a certain area, that in the same industry, and guess who's gonna be able to impact more people just because they've either gotten over it or maybe they don't even struggle with it. I mean, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who, like, when they realize they're supposed to be on social media, like they don't care. They're like, oh, if this is gonna make me more money, then I'm in it, like,
yeah, yeah,
and they don't struggle with it. And I mean, because even in my own personal life, like the reason I don't upload to my personal YouTube channel as much as I should, and I want to help more churches, is because that's the thought, is like, do I want to be the X guy? Like, that's the thing that comes through my head. Like, how are people going to see me? Like, do I want to box myself? Those thoughts are all putting man like at number one.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
one thing I've learned is like, if whatever you fear the most is whatever you submit to the most. And so never posting because you're afraid of how you're going to look, sound, or whatever, you're it's only going to take you starting messy. It's only going to take you just going through that time and time again, to when you get in the place of like, no, I got to pump out content, man. Like I'm here to, this is a form of helping people. And I mean, I'm not always one to like connect everything back to business, but like one thing we've learned at Think Media is that your income's directly connected to the amount of value you add to the marketplace. So, our most liked videos on our most liked videos on YouTube are are ones that are full tutorials where we're just helping people, and they're also they're the least disliked. And that's because you're just putting yourself out there to help people. It's kind of hard to hate on somebody who's helping people, you know?
Yeah, no, without question. Yeah, and I think that there's ways around it too, to kind of get yourself, more comfortable with it. I know, if you don't like the way you look, then you can start a podcast. You know what I mean, and create
For
content
sure.
where your face isn't shown, or maybe you feel like you don't, maybe you're not articulate, and you feel like you're comfortable with how you look, but you don't like how you speak. Well, then you can post, what I mean, pictures. And so I think that there's ways around it. And as we develop confidence in those areas, whether you start a podcast, you know what I mean, or whether you just start a TikTok or whatever it is, it kind of creates, momentum for us to become better in those other ways. But yeah, I think it's something that we have to face head on, because, obviously the goal is to fear God, number one. And as we fear God, those other things I feel like generally get a lot smaller. And so the perception of how, we look towards other people, you don't think about it as much, because you're focusing on, like you said, that one person that needs it. You have something to say today that could literally change somebody's lives.
For
And so the
sure.
thought of not, posting just because you feel like you don't look great or whatever, whatever it is, could be hindering that person. And so, I think it's something that we have to learn to adjust to. And again, as we do it, we get better. I know for the podcast, it's funny because I look back, Omar, on the first podcast I did in 2016, and it was it's laughable. You know what I mean? There's been a
For
couple
sure.
times I look back on that podcast and I literally cringe. It's really hard for me to listen to. Um, but as we get those reps in, with each post, you're getting better. You know what I mean? With each
100%.
podcast, you're getting better. So you just kind of got to get it out there, and it might feel uncomfortable at first, but the more you do it, the better you'll get.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, like I didn't start Think Media with Sean Cannell, and then when he was at around like 16,000 subscribers or so, he had me come in and help, and I was helping shoot and edit videos, so I was able to see that like behind the scenes. I was a part of the behind the scenes process, and it wasn't till really the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 when he really was like, "Hey, I want you to start posting videos on the channel." And so that started kind of like the journey of consistently uploading videos to YouTube. And I don't take it as, I take it nothing other than a compliment when people are like, dude, you're getting so much better on camera. You're getting so much more confident on camera. I'm like, for sure, I'm supposed to be getting better. The
Yeah,
issue would
yeah.
be is if I just stood in the same place.
Yeah.
And I do it is like I want to grow as a communicator, and so like the things I do when the camera is off have a lot to do with the moments when I do turn on the camera or when I do start posting, whatever that looks like. But confidence comes from the inner game. It comes from, it comes from preparation. I think a lot of times, like even anxiety comes from a lack of preparation. And so really the energy I'm bringing through a camera usually comes from a place of confidence in my preparation, and therefore allowing me to not be timid but also get better. And that's the goal, man. And that's why if you never post and you're afraid of what other people think, like you're robbing yourself from actually getting better. And maybe there's like a selfish take to this whole thing, and that is like, yo, I'm gonna, for a season, I'm gonna do this for me. There's actually a funny story. Like Heather on the Think Media team, she's the chief operations officer. Before she actually started her YouTube channel, she wanted to like you were mentioning, get like reps in. So she started a Snapchat with no followers, and she just started talking into her camera for 30 days straight. She's like, I'm gonna film myself. And then even like the whole flow of like watching it back. Like I love watching myself back, and I know a lot of people actually like cringe to do that, but I want to get better, and I'm like critiquing myself. And so I say all that to say, like, just getting started is key, and maybe it does take, get those reps in on a Finsta account or something, just so you can get it out there. But at the same time, you want people to see your progress. It's like there's so much beauty in that because people like to see the journey, and it's so encouraging when people see Sean's first video where he has no energy. He's like off frame, and like he's just, it's awful. But then
Yeah.
he's the guy who's teaching video at such a high level. It's so, all that to say, yeah, you just got to get started.
Yeah, it's crazy you said that, because legitimately an hour ago I was speaking with Dalton Reisner, who plays for the Denver Broncos, and we legitimately said, yeah, preparation leads to confidence. And it's so true. I love that too. That's a great practice. If anybody's listening, it doesn't even have to be any, for anybody. If it's a YouTube channel and you make the YouTube channel private, you know what I mean? To where nobody
For
sees
sure.
it, just to get the reps in, whether it's Snapchat. Yeah, you don't have to necessarily go live with it right away. You can practice before implementing it. But Omar, church. So this is one that hits home for me. Um,
Same.
and it's something that I think, there's still a lot of potential. And while there's still a lot of potential, there's a lot of churches that aren't capitalizing on the potential. And I listened to a podcast with you the other day, and I could be paraphrasing this, so I apologize if this is wrong, but you said something along the lines of, how are you preaching from your platform? And I think that, we obviously have these local churches, and the local church is something that I'm really passionate about, but we have literally, you know, millions and millions and millions of people, that have access and could potentially see what you have to say. And I think that a lot of churches, I don't know what the reason may be. Maybe they just haven't got to it yet, but haven't decided to do that. Whether that's even having somebody as a photographer, you know what I mean,
Hmm.
or even having live stream capabilities or whatever it may be. Can you maybe just talk about the importance of capitalizing in the
For
church
sure.
with social media?
I I think the answer and the reason why most churches don't, I mean, there's a million reasons. It could be leadership issues. It could be, we're not trying to do this and that. I think the main one that I think about and the one I see the most is that most churches believe that they're supposed to reach the world. And it's funny because like one thing we teach, at Think Media is to like know your niche and know your audience. And I actually think a lot of churches miss the mark trying to reach the world because, oh, we uploaded our sermon on YouTube and so there 3 billion people can like watch our like that's not that's not effective, like just throwing out the net like that. I genuinely believe it's almost easier to think of it this way, and the perspective that churches should have when it comes to content creation or the reason why and all that stuff is to serve your local church. like like if the reason why we're able to help so many people is because people have they're in different cities and they have different communities and all that stuff. And I think when it comes to churches, like I think there is an insecurity there, knowing that like when we put it out there, it's for the world to know about it. And I do think some churches have that call, and we see that evident in many of the churches that everyone knows, the worship, the worship teams that are well known and all that stuff. But I believe most churches, 90% of churches, 95, maybe 99% of churches are called to just reach their community. And so this could be, if you're a church leader, maybe this can give you some insight on some ideas, but start creating video courses for your church. Hey, the book of Ephesians is now live. You can take it. That's discipleship. Like, hey, we started, we put out a new series called How to Understand the Bible from Monday to Saturday. And it's not, don't worry about, any other church to see this other than your local community. I even think another cool idea that came to me, and I really want to encourage churches to potentially start this, is a podcast for your church. Like, no, not just upload the sermon Sunday night or Monday morning and then that's the podcast. No, I mean, have somebody show up as an interviewer and interview your people in your church. Tell the stories. You don't have to make these fancy testimony videos anymore. You can just literally sit for
Yeah.
20, 25 minutes and be like, yo, this is my dude, Sam. Dude, he's been able to close incredible home prices, and he's a believer, and he started his business with nothing, and he's trusted God through his trusting his finances. We're going to talk about his story. And and then you see that guy at church on Sunday, and it does something. It's like you're building the actual community of your church. I just think it's helpful when you start thinking that way. The same way when it comes to thinking about your content strategy or calendar, as far as your church goes, if you thought of it like a pastor and like you were just, everything you were doing was essentially trying to feed your church, you would honestly not run out of ideas. Like, hey, like talking like, what prayers are you praying? Hey, church, let's all take 60 seconds today and pray this prayer. Hey, did you know that I think again, we're trying to like reach the world on on our content as far as local churches go, when really I think they should just start with their community. And I think it will trickle. Like, people will send like, dude, check out this story on this real estate agent in my church. This friend of yours isn't saved, but it's a cool story. And that is biblical. Like we
Yeah.
overcome the world through the blood of Jesus and the
Word of our
power of our
testimony.
testimony.
Yeah.
And so we need to be better at telling churches stories. And I think sometimes we got caught up because the churches that are trying to reach the world make it this awesome live, production, cinematic, and all that stuff, which is cool, and I love that. But if you can get out more, stories because of you set up a podcast room or something, then dude, go for it. And so I definitely think that changes the perspective on how you create, and it also changes. It gives you more of a why, I believe, because it's not so granular. It's like, we're just trying to serve our church. And so that's why, I mean, I feel like that's why churches probably don't take it as serious as they could, because I think that it's too far off when really you're just trying to reach your church Monday through Saturday,
Yeah.
where they're already at. Like they're already listening to podcasts, they're already on YouTube, they're already on Instagram. So like, just meet them where they're at during the week and be that source of encouragement, be that ounce of, feeding your church throughout the week, and it'll bless the church. And I think that's the new. I think that's the 2021 approach to church social media and content is, we're just making it for our church. If more people find it cool, but that's not our goal. And I actually believe God's going to honor that, and it'll encourage your church more than anything.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Yeah. I just think in our communities, I mean, there's people that are waiting for that. And the cool thing about that too, Omar, I think it makes it a lot more personable, because if I know that, the church down the road, um, it has that podcast, you know what I mean? Or is doing that, then I can respond to that. And obviously if I'm seeing that, whether it's, you promoted that on IG or whatever it is, yeah, it creates community. And, like you said, if it gets bigger, then that's great. God willing, if you want your platform to grow, I think that generally happens naturally. And everything that we're talking about, it just starts small. You know what I mean? As we're faithful of small, we can be trusted with much, and God honors that. So, yeah, that's great advice for sure. Are you cool with some rapid fire questions here, real quick?
Yeah, let's hit it.
Let's go. Okay, so your favorite font to use, Omar?
I know, I mean, I do like Helvetica. Helvetica Bold
Yeah.
is the flow.
Yep, always. That's what I use all the time. Favorite editing software?
Adobe Premiere Pro. I've been using it for like 15 years now.
Favorite camera?
Favorite camera at the moment is the Sony A7S III. We've been using it a ton at Think Media, and it really, I feel like it just produces like next level. Like when I see myself on the video, I'm like, holy cow, it looks like a movie.
Yeah, for sure. Facebook, IG, or TikTok?
I'm gonna say IG, even though
Nice.
it's getting a little bit too much, but IG.
Let's go. Stories or reels?
I would have to say stories, still, just because I think it's not contrived. It's just the overflow.
Yeah. Okay. Biggest mistake people make in posting?
Is not thinking about the person who's seeing it. You're not, yeah, you're posting something
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with the person who's, on the other side.
Yeah. That's great advice. Number one piece of advice for growing your audience?
If you want to grow your audience, start by serving your audience.
Yeah.
And I love what Andy Stanley says, do what you can do for one, what you wish you can do for many. And so who is that one person that you can have at the top of your mind when it comes to serving and equipping, as far as putting out content? And that I trust me, there's more of that one person that you're serving.
Yeah. That's great. I love it. Omar, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you.
Dude, it's super fun talking.